When Emily walked out of the office, she threw her folder of reports onto her desk and slipped on her windbreaker. It had been one of those days at work, head spinning and relentless, and all she wanted was to get home and snuggle up with a hot cup of tea wrapped in her favorite fuzzy blanket. But as she hurried down the icy sidewalk, the cold air seeped through her layers, making her shiver to the bone. As she neared her condo, her heart sank when she noticed the lights blaring from every window. Her husband, Jake, was home, which could only mean trouble. The muffled sound of music blaring from the open window was accompanied by Jake's slurred voice, laced with curse words. She stopped dead in her tracks. This was the tipping point. It was that familiar level of drunkenness where he didn't just sound angry, he sounded like a stranger. Emily sighed heavily, overwhelmed. She knew that if she walked inside now, it would only lead to another long night of accusations. Jake always took his frustrations out on her, hurling blame like a weapon. She sank onto a damp bench, trying to hold back her tears, but they streamed down her cheeks anyway. "Where the hell have you been?" Jake's voice boomed from the window, his silhouette swaying slightly as he leaned out, looking half-crazed. "You think I'm just gonna wait around for you?" "I'm coming," she said softly, her spirit heavy. She knew she wouldn't get any peace tonight. Jake would scream until the sun came up, and only at dawn would he pass out, leaving her with the mess he created. After sleepless hours, Emily trudged into the bathroom for a shower, then forced herself to make tea and clean the apartment. She felt like a ghost, exhausted and drained. As she stepped into her car to drive to work, she splashed down into a huge puddle, and with it, her entire purse spilled out into the filthy water. Her heart dropped as she watched her things float away, her white coat now stained with muck. The embarrassment was overwhelming, and she let the tears flow, feeling utterly defeated. A few hurried commuters rushed into the Starbucks nearby, ignoring her plight. Just as she thought she'd hit rock bottom, she heard a warm voice nearby. "Hey, let me help you out." "No thanks," she sniffled, waving him off, feeling ridiculous. "Come on, you can't just leave a girl like this," he said, a friendly smile on his face. "I'm Tyler, and you're clearly having a rough day. At the very least, let me help." Emily hesitated. Maybe it was his genuine kindness, or just the desperate need for someone to notice her pain. "Fine," she relented. "I really could use some help." Tyler picked her up out of the puddle, shaking off her coat as best he could while he collected her scattered belongings. "What's next?" he asked, pretending to be serious. "I honestly don't know. I can't go to work looking like this, but I don't want to go home either. Jake's probably awake and nursing a hangover," she admitted, the weight of her words heavy. "Why don't you come with me? I'm staying at a hotel just a block away. You can warm up in my room, and I'll grab you some new clothes from a store nearby," he offered, his eyes sparkling with kindness. "What? I can't do that," she protested weakly. "Refusal is not an option, especially since we share a name," he quipped. "If I was stuck in a puddle, wouldn't you help me?" There was something about his playful persistence that made her want to say yes. "All right," she said, extending her hand to him, feeling a small spark of hope. Once they were in the hotel room, she took a hot shower, and for the first time all day, she felt a sense of warmth. Tyler returned quickly, arms laden with shopping bags. "Here, I got you a coat and some comfy pajamas. I hope they fit. You look like you could use some decent clothes." "Thank you so much, but you really didn't have to spend this much," she stammered, a bit shy about accepting. "It's just enough, trust me. And I ordered lunch. I bet you haven't eaten all day, have you?" "Let's eat together," he suggested, and before she knew it, she was laughing, losing track of the time. He shared stories about his recent travel adventures, and Emily couldn't help but be captivated. While she'd been stuck in a suffocating routine with Jake, Tyler's life was full of passion and spontaneity. As they shared meals and stories, Emily felt the burden on her heart lift just a little bit. But as the sun began to set, the reality of her situation crept back in. She knew it was time to go home. "I should get back," she said, sadness coating her voice. "Do you have to?" Tyler asked, his eyes searching hers, as if he respected her pain but also wanted to hold on to this moment. "I really don't want to leave, but—" "Emily, life is too short to stay in a situation that makes you miserable," he said gently, moving closer, his presence wrapping around her like a warm blanket. She hesitated, acutely aware that they had just met but feeling something undeniably deep within her. "You don't even know me," she said, her heart racing. I feel like I do. And maybe this is crazy, but I'm not ready for this day with you to end. In that moment, she saw a possibility, a glimpse of what a different life could look like. Maybe, she whispered, the weight of her decision hanging in the air. As he opened the window for some fresh air, the last rays of the sun streamed in, casting warmth and light. Time felt like it stood still around them. And just then, she realized she didn't want this enchanting day to be just a memory. She wanted it to be the beginning of something new. Maybe this is love at first sight, she whispered. And with those words, a spark ignited, full of promise for what was to come. When I walked through the door that day, I immediately sensed something was off. The air was thick, heavy with unsaid words and unexpressed fears. Tyler stood in the living room, his back turned to me, staring out the window as if it held all the answers. "Where have you been?" he finally asked, his voice strained. I braced myself for the emotional storm that was about to hit. "I had to get some things sorted out for work," I said defensively, but I could hardly look him in the eye. In my heart, I knew this was far more than a typical business trip. The truth was, I was considering leaving. "Just tell me where you're going," he pleaded, turning to face me. His eyes were filled with a mixture of hope and despair, and my heart twisted at the sight. "I can't do this anymore, Tyler." I felt even more trapped as the words left my mouth. They hung in the air like heavy fog. "Please, Emily, don't go. We can fix this, can't we?" he begged, stepping toward me, clearly desperate. Just a week ago, he was the one I wanted to share every moment with. Now, he felt like a stranger. As I began to pack my bag, my heart racing with fear and uncertainty, memories rushed back. Our first date at Starbucks, the laughter we shared over silly inside jokes, the plans we had to move in together. It all seemed so perfect back then. But those bright days felt like a lifetime ago, buried under the weight of truth I could no longer ignore. "You don't understand how miserable I am," I snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface. He didn't get it. He couldn't see the tired eyes staring back at him that had lost their sparkle under the burden of expectations and loneliness. I had been pouring so much of myself into him and our relationship, but I was running on empty. And then I remembered Oleg, my ex-husband. I thought I had moved past our toxic relationship, but he still had a grip on the pit of my heart. He was recovering from his own demons, trying to stay sober, and every time I left him to preserve my sanity, I felt a pang of guilt. He wasn't a bad person, he just couldn't seem to get it together, and I would always be stuck in the middle of that chaos. "Please don't leave," Tyler's voice cut through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. I looked at him, his eyes now glistening with unshed tears. "I will clean up, I swear I won't drink. Just give me one more chance." For a heartbeat, I could see the boy I fell in love with, the one with dreams and plans. But then I remembered the nights I had to scrape him off our apartment floor, the hours spent worrying if he would ever find his way back to me. Our love felt like an uphill battle I was losing every day. "Tyler, I can't live like this anymore. I need to take care of myself. You deserve someone who can be there for you fully, and right now that isn't me." My voice trembled, but I stood my ground, my resolve hardening like steel. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands, and I felt my heart breaking for him. "But you're my everything," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Without you, I'll be lost." I envisioned a life without that weight on my shoulders, the freedom to choose happiness over guilt, to love without feeling smothered by the past. But admitting that felt like ripping a piece of my heart out. I stood there, my bag half packed, tears streaming down my face. Could I really leave him, knowing it might send him spiraling back down? "Maybe we're just not good for each other anymore," I murmured, barely able to voice my truth. "So this is it?" he asked, raw disbelief woven into his words. I nodded, but the only thing I could hear was the ticking of the clock, an ominous reminder that time was running out. I took a deep breath and made my way to the door, glancing back one last time. He was still sitting there, the love of my life crumbling before my eyes, and my stomach twisted in knots. As I stepped outside, the cool evening breeze hit my face, a harsh contrast to the warmth I had just left. But still, my heart raced with anticipation about the unknown that lay ahead. I could feel the weight of a new beginning in my chest, the relief of letting go. And yet, a part of me mourned what we once had, what could have been if we'd gotten it right. But deep down, I knew there were brighter days ahead, a chance to reclaim my happiness, and somewhere out there, Tyler might just find someone who could love him better than I ever could. I texted him one last time before I got into my car and drove away. I hope you find your way back to yourself. You deserve that. With a mix of fear and hope, I hit send, praying that my goodbye would lead us both to the happiness we desperately needed. When I walked into my apartment that stormy evening, the air was heavy with something other than the usual cozy scent of my favorite candle. My heart raced. Jake was slouched on the couch, his head buried in his hands. The sight made my chest ache. "But you're my everything," he whispered, his voice breaking like a fragile string. I felt the weight of those words. What if leaving him meant unraveling everything we'd built? A life without his laughter, without the way he swept me off my feet despite everything. Yet, deep down, I longed for space, to breathe without the chains of guilt and heartbreak. It felt like I was being ripped apart, facing the realization that I needed to put myself first. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I stood there, my bag half packed, an ultimatum fluttering awkwardly in the air between us. "Maybe we're just not good for each other anymore," I finally managed, my voice almost a whisper. Jake looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "So this is it?" The raw edge of despair in his tone pierced through me. I nodded, each tick of the clock a haunting reminder that his pain was unavoidable. With a deep breath, I stepped towards the door, my heart pounding like a drum. I glanced back one last time. Jake sat there, the love of my life unraveling before my eyes. It was gut-wrenching. I felt a tangle of fear and relief as I stepped outside into the brisk evening air, the coolness a stark contrast to the warmth I had just left behind. I could taste freedom on my lips and felt a spark of hope for something new, something good that awaited me, even if I had to let him go. But a bittersweet wave washed over me as I mourned what we once had, the sunrise moments we shared, the laughter echoed in our small condo, and all those late-night drives that felt timeless. I shivered at the thought of Tyler, my old college crush, reaching out to me someday. He could be the one who loved Jake better than I ever could, the one who would lift him up. As I climbed into my car, I sent one last text to Jake. "I hope you find your way back to yourself. You deserve that." My hands shook as I hit send, a flurry of emotions swirling within me. I hoped this goodbye would guide both of us toward the happiness we desperately needed. "Let me get this straight," Sarah said with a smirk as she leaned back into the kitchen chair, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air. "You finally dumped him, after all that drama?" She raised an eyebrow, her expression a mix of pride and concern. "Yeah, I did. I'm done with the chaos." I sighed, unsure whether I felt liberated or lost. "I can't handle the emotional roller coaster anymore." "Finally, took you long enough to see the light." Sarah clapped her hands, shaking her hair loose. "Now, sit down. I've got big news and I need your support." We had been friends for years, bonding since my tough childhood. When I ended up in foster care, Sarah, older and braver, took me under her wing. She was always a whirlwind of determination, unafraid to chase her dreams. "I want to start my own business," she declared, a gleam in her eye. "But I can't do it without you. You're the smartest person I know." "What kind of business?" I asked, intrigued but skeptical. "A beauty salon. I've been doing hair for 5 years. I think it's time I take the leap." "Wait, you want me to quit my job for this?" I laughed nervously. The idea felt risky. "Of course, you're too smart to waste away in that dead-end office anyway. Think about it, your own place. In a few years, you could have your own apartment." I hesitated. Could I leave my steady job behind for something so unpredictable? Yet, I could see the spark in her eyes. It was contagious. "Okay, I'll help, but let's not rush into anything." "I knew you wouldn't let me down." Sarah's smile lit up the room. But the next morning, everything flipped. As I lay in bed, an unbearable nausea stirred within me. "What's going on? Is it something I ate?" I groaned, clutching my stomach. "What if you're pregnant?" Sarah suggested, her eyes wide. "No way, Matt and I haven't been close for a while now," I replied, but doubt crept in. Memories of stolen glances and whispered confessions flashed through my mind. Was it even possible? "Seriously, you should check." I hadn't told Sarah about our last dramatic fight, how Matt had accused me of not caring enough, how I had fallen for a fling in my heart, searching for comfort in the arms of someone who seemed to understand me. "You're being silly. You like him, don't you?" Sarah's voice grew firm, flipping the switch from supportive to annoyed. Life is too short to play games. You need to go for it. What do you mean? I don't even know anything about him. I didn't even get his last name. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. Look, if you're pregnant, you're going to need a support system. And I wish I had been more serious when I had the chance. I regret my decisions every day, she confessed, her eyes heavy with memories. Just promise me you won't make those same mistakes. I promise, you'll be the godmother, I smiled weakly, grateful for her unwavering support. The following day, I sat in the doctor's office, heart racing. Congratulations, you're 4 weeks along, the doctor chirped, but my mind raced with a whirlwind of doubt. As I left, Sarah's words echoed in my mind. It was time to embrace the changes. When I finally met up with Sarah again, I couldn't help but smile. I have 2 incredible pieces of news. I grinned, feeling lighter. Don't leave me hanging, she urged. I'm pregnant, and I've decided I'll help you start your beauty business. Her ecstatic squeal resonated through the coffee shop like music. Let's do this. With a small office and a bit of ambition, Sarah and I began to chase our dreams. The profits were slow at first, but we were determined, navigating through the ups and downs together. But there were still shadows lurking in my past. You won't believe who showed up at my place last night, Sarah said. Matt was sitting there like he owned the place. I kicked him out. Good for you, I replied. You deserve to find your way. I won't let my past hold me back anymore. We had each other's backs, and if nothing else, we would rise together. When I walked into the Starbucks that rainy afternoon, I couldn't shake off this heavy feeling in my chest. It was the kind of day that made you want to crawl back into bed, but I was there to meet Sarah, my best friend since freshman year. I have 2 huge pieces of news, she said, her eyes sparkling brighter than the coffee shop's neon lights. I felt a wave of enthusiasm wash over me. Tell me already, I leaned in closer. I'm pregnant, and I want your help to kickstart my beauty business. Her excitement felt contagious, and I couldn't help but beam in response. Her joyous shriek echoed off the walls, tugging at the hearts of everyone sipping their lattes. We're doing this, she declared, and in that moment, I knew we were meant to chase our dreams together. Setting up in a tiny co-working space turned out to be an adventure. At first, the profits trickled in like a slow drizzle, but the determination between us was fierce. We had each other's backs, navigating the roller coaster of business and life side by side. But shadows from my past lingered, they clung to me like an unwanted ghost. You won't believe who dropped by my apartment last night, Sarah said, her voice dropping to a whisper. It was Matt, and he acted like nothing ever happened. I kicked him to the curb. Good for you, I said, a sense of pride swelling in my chest. You've got to prioritize yourself. I've decided I'm not letting my past hold me back either. We were rising from the ashes, 2 friends supporting each other in our quests for happiness and fulfillment, even on the darker days. But then came the chaos. The storm began when I received a text from Jake, my ex. It simply said, "We need to talk." My heart plummeted. Did he really think he could waltz back into my life after everything? I could feel my hands shaking as I typed back, "I'm not interested." But that nagging voice in the back of my mind had me second-guessing myself. Was I making a mistake being so stubborn? It felt like I was loitering on the edge of a cliff, dangerously close to falling back into old patterns. A few days later, there he was, standing outside my condo, hands in his pockets, looking like he had seen better days. "Can we talk?" he asked softly, and I could feel anger stirring within me. "Why are you here?" I snapped back, crossing my arms defensively. Why did he think I owed him anything? "I know I messed up," he said, his eyes pleading. "I just want another chance." I couldn't believe it. The nerve of him to show up now, trying to act like he didn't shatter my heart into a million pieces. "You knew what you were doing when you disappeared," I shot back, each word heavy with the weight of betrayal. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I could hear the hum of traffic outside, but all I could focus on was the tension between us. "I don't want to hear your excuses. Please just listen to me. I want to be part of our child's life," he said, desperation lacing his words. I was seeing red now. "You think you can just come back and play happy family after running from your responsibilities?" My voice was rising, and I could feel my pulse racing. I had let this man control my emotions for far too long. He stepped closer, and my gut instinct screamed at me to back away. "I can be better. I promise," he said, but I wasn't convinced. The memories of all the promises he had broken flashed before my eyes like grainy old film. "What good are promises when they only exist in your mind?" I questioned, my voice now a whisper. My heart ached for the man I once knew, but I couldn't ignore the truth. He wasn't the same person anymore, and neither was I. With tears stinging my eyes, I decided to walk away. "You should leave. I want nothing to do with you." I opened the door to let him out, and the realization hit hard. I was finally taking control of my life. The weight on my shoulders began to lift as I slammed the door shut. I found Sarah at our co-working space later that day, her usual upbeat attitude slightly dimmed. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern etching her face. "I confronted Jake," I said, my voice trembling. It felt good to stand up for myself, but I still feel broken inside. "Girl, you're not broken, you're a warrior," she exclaimed. "You've been through so much, but you're still standing here. You deserve to be happy." As we got back to work, I felt the power of our partnership bubble to the surface. We started brainstorming more marketing ideas for her beauty business, and I realized that together, we could conquer anything. She had my back, and I had hers. But just when I thought the clouds were clearing, I spotted a bouquet of roses by the entrance of the building where we worked. My heart sank as I glanced back at Sarah. "That's probably the kind of thing I missed out on," I muttered, my vulnerability creeping back. "Or maybe it's what we don't need," she countered, her unwavering confidence lighting up the room. "True happiness comes from within, not from someone else." As I took a deep breath, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. There was something beautiful emerging, not just in business but in my life too. And as we delved into planning our next big launch, I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't looking back anymore. The past would stay behind, and the future was going to be bright. "Let's do this, Sarah," I said, ready to take on whatever came next. Together, we were unstoppable. The moment I walked in, I knew something was off. There he was, Jake, standing at the entrance of our office with a bouquet of roses and a goofy grin, but it wasn't for me. My heart dropped. I turned to Sarah, my colleague and trusted friend, and said, "That's probably the kind of thing I missed out on." "Or maybe it's what we don't need," she shot back, her confidence lighting up the room like a spark. "True happiness comes from within, not from someone else." As I took a deep breath, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving in my own way. We were about to kick off a new marketing campaign for her beauty line, and despite everything, it felt like something beautiful was emerging, both in our work and in my personal life. "Let's do this, Sarah," I replied, ready to tackle whatever came next. Together, we were unstoppable. But then things took a turn. Just when I thought the clouds were clearing, I saw the roses again, and my stomach twisted. I had to remind myself that I had been through a rough patch with Jake just a few months before, and these sweet gestures didn't mean anything in the long run, especially not from the guy who ghosted me after 2 years. Sarah, sensing my shift, nudged my arm. "Remember, he's not going to define you. What's meant for you won't miss you." I nodded, but in that instant, a bolt of doubt shot through me. The insecurity was hard to shake off. I glanced back at the flowers and felt my cheeks flush. Such a cliché. "Girl, you're not broken, you're a warrior," Sarah said, rallying my spirits. "You've been through so much, but you're still standing strong. You deserve all the happiness in the world." I couldn't help but smile at her encouragement. We launched into brainstorming our ideas for the beauty line, and despite my earlier melancholy, the energy between us was electric. I realized I was ready to leave the past behind and build a future. I just had to let go of my doubts. But then, that nagging feeling returned. Just as we wrapped up our meeting, I overheard Jake chatting with a mutual friend in the break room. The world felt like it was tilting on its axis when I heard him talking about the one. My chest tightened, and I felt an old, familiar sting at the back of my throat. "Sarah," I whispered, glancing toward the break room while trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you hear that?" She shook her head, frowning. "What are we talking about?" "Jake, he's talking about someone else like he's in love with her. After everything we went through, how could he just move on?" "Doesn't really sound like your guy, does it?" she said, her brow furrowing. "The one you opened your heart to." "No," I said slowly, the reality hitting me. He made me feel like I was the one, like I was enough, and then poof, gone without a trace. What are you going to do about it? Sarah's eyes shined with anticipation, as though she was ready for a showdown. I don't know, part of me wants to confront him, but what good would it do? I sighed. I can't pretend it doesn't hurt, seeing him move on like it was nothing. Well, maybe he's just not worth the heartache anymore, she encouraged, throwing in her best supportive friend vibe. Focus on what's in front of you. That was it. I felt a fire ignite within. I wouldn't let him take control of my happiness. I wasn't just surviving, I was ready to reclaim my life and thrive. Later that week, Sarah and I decided to hit a trendy little cafe downtown for some late-night brainstorming and self-care. I needed to shake off the tension, and a little caffeine and comfort food felt like the answer. Okay, Sarah said, grabbing her iced latte as we settled into a cozy corner of the cafe. What's next? How are we going to make your new venture pop? We tossed around ideas, laughing over shared memories and the random tweets we'd seen that week, and slowly but surely, I felt something shift. The weight of being Jake's ex was starting to lift, replaced by excitement over my future. So, what about that cute guy from the design team? He seems interested, you know, Sarah pointed out. What are you waiting for? I paused, considering it. Maybe I was headlong into my own journey, and maybe I had room for new connections. You think I should? Absolutely. You deserve to explore new beginnings and meet people who appreciate you, she said enthusiastically. I looked at her, and in that moment of clarity, I realized something. I wasn't ready to give up on love just yet. You're right, I said, feeling a smile break across my face. Thanks for always pushing me. As we wrapped up our meeting and headed out into the cool night air, I felt liberated. I wouldn't remain trapped by old wounds anymore. Sure, it'd be messy and scary, but that was part of life, of love. With Sarah by my side, I was certain of one thing. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, and this time I wasn't looking back. The past may have shaped me, but it wouldn't define me. Time to step into the spotlight. My story was just beginning. I clenched my fists, praying everything would work out. The thought crossed my mind that Jake might just hang up on me. But then, a deep voice interrupted my worries. Hey, I'm listening, he answered, sounding rough around the edges. Hi, I need to talk to Jake, I managed to squeak out. It's me, what's this about? Jake's voice was cold, distant. I took a deep breath, heart racing, this was it. I'm Larissa, a friend of Vladislava S. You met her recently. I figured you should know something important. Important? What are you getting at? The tension in the air was palpable. You have a daughter, Jake, Vladislava's daughter, I said firmly. He paused, confused. What? We barely know each other. His irritation spilled over, and I could feel my frustration simmering. I'm not trying to scam you or anything. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. Goodbye, he snapped and hung up. I let out a sigh, feeling the sting of rejection. I knew Jake wouldn't jump for joy when he got the news about his kid, but I didn't expect such hostility. But hey, at least I tried, right? The following morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. I squinted at the screen, it was him. Hey, I'll be in your area tomorrow. Where's Vladislava? He asked, sounding a bit softer. Why should I tell you? I shot back, unsettled by his suddenly polite demeanor. Look, I just want to talk to her. Please, let's meet. Reluctantly, I gave him the address of the salon where we worked, feeling uneasy about how this would all play out. The next day, he walked in looking serious. There was tension in the air as I motioned him to a seat. Vladislava S. not here, but I can tell you she's doing well. Larissa, I'm not here for a handout. I just need to know what's going on with Vlad and my daughter. His words hit me hard. I could see the confusion etched on his face, but I knew he needed to hear the truth. You don't understand what she went through after you left. She thought you wouldn't want to be a part of this. Jake's expression shifted. I hardly even know her, but I'm here now because what she said keeps me up at night. I need to see her. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. That day I met her has been tormenting me, he admitted quietly. I can't shake off these feelings. Back at the apartment, Vladislava rested her head against the cool glass of the window looking out, the weight of memories flooding back to her. Her thoughts drifted to Jake, a man who had impacted her in ways she couldn't explain. Then a knock jolted her out of her daydream. She opened the door, surprised to see him standing there. Jake. Her heart raced. How did he find her? "Hey," he whispered, his eyes searching hers. "Is it too late to talk?" Her instincts screamed at her to say no, but the way he stood there, vulnerable, made her want to pull him in. "I just laid my daughter down for a nap. Can you keep it down?" she replied, taking a step back to let him in. Suddenly, everything felt too real. She recalled the moments of happiness they shared, tangled with anxiety over why they hadn't been together. "Look," he began, "I need to know if what they said is true. Did you really have a baby?" "Yes," she finally admitted, feeling exposed. "But the decision was mine. I've made this journey on my own." Just then, a soft cry came from the other room. I felt my heart twist, and without thinking, I rushed to comfort the baby, while Jake quietly entered the nursery to see his daughter. "This is Ainchka?" he asked, his gaze softening as he admired her delicate features. He couldn't help but smile, recognizing the resemblance. "That's her," she said, her heart pounding as she watched him hold their baby for the first time. "She deserves to know her father." Jake gazed deeply into his daughter's eyes, wonder in his voice. "She looks just like me." "I know," Vladislava said, feeling lighter. "I tried to forget about you, but she reminds me of you every day." He studied her, and it was clear pain and longing surged between them, raw and real. "I waited for you to show up that day," he said, his voice breaking. "I kept hoping you'd come back." Vladislava's heart sank. "I was scared to open that door to let you back in. I didn't want to get hurt again." But they both knew it was time to face the truth. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about the little girl between them who would forever connect their lives. "I think we need to talk about everything," Jake said as he carefully handed Ainchka back to Vladislava. "Yeah," she replied, taking a deep breath. "We really do." The pieces were falling into place, but they both felt the weight of doubt hanging in the air. Could they really build something from here, after everything that had happened? Or would the scars of the past keep them from moving forward? It was a fork in the road, and for the first time, they both wanted to choose the same path. I remember the moment it all clicked. I had no way to contact him. Just his name haunted me, and that was it. A month later, I found out I was pregnant and instantly knew I had to leave my husband. This child opened my eyes to everything, made me realize I was living a lie. It was time for a radical change in my life. "Why didn't I tell you everything at the hospital?" Vlad asked, his voice shaky. "You should have seen your face. I thought you'd burn me alive with that glare. How could I have looked at you? And then you couldn't find me?" His expression was a mixture of confusion and hurt. But what really hit me was how I didn't even know how he managed to locate me. Laura, my best friend, seemed to have it all together, and yet she had kept the truth from me. "Would you come with me?" Vlad's question caught me off guard. I didn't quite process it at first. Was he really suggesting that I move in with him after all this time? I thought I could just forget about him, but deep down, I realized I was falling for him hard. This was new territory for me. He stepped closer, wrapping his arm around my shoulders, pulling me into a hug. For a heartbeat, we both felt like we were on top of the world. But inside, I was terrified. "Yes," I wanted to say, but the fear of the unknown held me back. Plus, abandoning Laura would crush her, the one person who had supported me through everything. "Let's not rush this," I finally said. "Ainchka is still so young. You think we should wait until she's older, or wait until Laura gets back on her feet?" "Wait until when?" Vlad's frustration bubbled over. I stayed quiet, not ready to argue. My heart was torn. I longed to run away with him, to escape to anywhere together, but I needed to know who he really was. Love wasn't enough to make such a major life decision alone. My daughter needed stability above everything. "I'm not going to pressure you," he said, disappointment evident in his tone. "I'll be in town for 3 more days. You have time to think this through." He kissed the sleeping Ainchka gently, laying her in the crib, and slipped out the door. I stood there in silence, wrestling with my thoughts. I really should take my time before making this big decision. The moment Laura walked in, tension burst through the air. "What were you thinking? You didn't even tell me he was coming," I exploded. "I thought we had no secrets." "Sorry, I meant to explain. I just didn't want you to freak out about me looking for Ainchka's dad." "I wanted what's best for you too," Laura replied, her eyes softening. I relayed the whole conversation to her, still spinning with confusion. Did I love Vlad? Could I really just leave everything behind? Laura shook her head. Girl, you're overthinking it. Love is complicated and you need to take a beat. Arrange a meeting. Just be real with him tomorrow. Talk things out about Anchka. It's going to help. I didn't fight her on this one. When I called Vlad, my stomach fluttered with nerves. Agreeing to meet with him stirred emotions I thought I'd buried. This wasn't just about me anymore. I realized I didn't want him to go. He was a real person, after all, and he probably wouldn't wait for me forever. When we met at that coffee shop, his face lit up when I walked in. Hey, he said, handing me a bouquet of white lilies. How did you know they're my favorite? You told me once, he smiled. Remember our chat about why so many women love roses? Yes, I replied, and it struck me how he remembered such little details after all this time. I haven't been able to sleep, just thinking about you and Anchka, he continued, his voice softer now. It's so strange for me to step into this role, but I feel the responsibility. I get that you want to be there for us, I said, searching for the right words. But how do I pick up and leave my entire life for you? You've got your job and a steady life back in Seattle, a big apartment, everything. He reached for my hand, placing it gently against a ring he had concealed in his pocket. But I'll always stand by you, he said. Look, I'll never hurt you. If you join me, I promise it'll be worth it. Before I could respond, I knew I had to talk to Laura first. That night, sharing my happiness with her felt surreal. Can you believe this? I think Vlad is the one. Our daughters were born on the same day. Whoa, that's wild, she replied, but something in her tone shifted. Are you sure this is the right decision? I mean, how do you really know this kid is yours? Her skepticism hit me like a brick wall. He's been there, Laura, he's real. But as I walked away, doubt crept in. Was I really ready to gamble everything on love? I had a lot to think through, and if Vlad was as serious as he claimed, I had to be sure I was all in. I didn't want to lose myself or him in the process. When I saw that text on Jake's phone, my heart dropped. How could he, out of all people, do this to me? We'd been together for what felt like forever, and now I was left questioning everything. Remember that time we talked about why so many girls love roses? Jake said, smiling as we sat on the couch in our small condo. The warmth in his eyes felt familiar, yet distant, like a memory I couldn't grasp. Yeah, I replied, feeling a mix of nostalgia and dread. I couldn't shake the thought of what I'd seen. Why do you remember that? It feels strange stepping into this role, he said softly, the weight of responsibility in his voice. But I can't help but feel this connection between us. Jake, how am I supposed to just leave my entire life behind for you? You have your job in Seattle, a stable life, everything you need, I said, trying to find the right balance between reality and my feelings. He reached over, placing my hand against a small velvet box he had somehow hidden in the depths of his pocket. I'll always stand by you, he said. If you take this leap, I promise it'll be worth it. That promise hung in the air like an unspoken truth, but something inside me screamed that I had to talk to Laura first. That night, as I shared my conflicted emotions with her over coffee at our favorite Starbucks, it felt surreal. Can you believe this? I think Jake could be the one. Our kids have the same birthday. Seriously, that's wild, Laura replied, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. You sure this is the right move? I mean, how do you know he's really yours? Her doubts hit me like a cold shower on a hot day. He's real, Laura, and he's been there for me. But as I left the cafe, I couldn't shake the creeping uncertainty. Was I really ready to gamble everything on love? I needed to think things through. If Jake was serious, I had to be ready to take the plunge. I didn't want to lose myself or him while figuring out this mess. Fast forward a year and life had changed drastically. Jake was my rock. His warmth enveloped me and Anya, my little girl, with a love I never thought possible. I finally found myself truly home. How are you here without me? I heard Jake's voice echo in the hallway, and I felt a surge of joy. Bad, I grinned. Anya and I miss our favorite guy. I feel the same way, he said with a wink, but there was a hint of tension behind his smile. So, what's the gossip? Work? Anything new? Laura called earlier. She's invited us to her wedding, I said hesitantly. And guess what? She's 3 months pregnant. Jake chuckled but paused, confusion flaring in his eyes. Wait, she was dealing with infertility. How is that possible? I guess things just worked out for her, I responded, feeling a mix of happiness and concern for Laura. Could she be pulling one over on us? He joked lightly, but I could sense he was genuinely worried. I couldn't shake the feeling that Laura's news was just the tip of the iceberg. We were gearing up for a surprise visit to her soon, and little did we know that the biggest secrets were waiting for us there. When we landed at the airport, the first thing I noticed was Laura, and next to her stood a man in a designer suit. Jake and I looked at each other, both taken aback. "Who's that guy?" I whispered as we approached. "That's Oleg," Laura said with a big smile. I could hardly recognize him. This was a man transformed, no longer an image of his former self. "Did you see what he's wearing?" Jake murmured. "Yeah, it's like looking at someone completely different," I replied, my mind racing. "I didn't just bring you here for a reunion," Laura declared solemnly. "Oleg isn't just a guy you used to know. He's changed. He's now the manager of a chain of beauty salons and, well, my partner." My heart raced as I processed her words. "That's amazing," I said, wrapping my arms around her tightly. "You deserve all this happiness." "I thought I'd lost any chance at love," she smiled through tears. "It's funny how life works out, isn't it?" I felt a rush of relief, but a voice in the back of my mind whispered about all the pain I had gone through leading up to this moment. I kept thinking about how Jake and I had struggled and fought for our love. Seeing Laura with Oleg made me realize how complicated love can truly be. As I observed them together, I felt a flicker of hope, that maybe our paths, though fraught with chaos, could lead to places we never expected. Maybe love, in its wildest forms, is worth every risk, and maybe this journey was just beginning.